Well, first of all, what are you bebopping to, Jonathan?
Nothing.
Oh,
Life. Just life.
well, that's true. We'll save that news for another episode. But in the meantime, this is another edition, and I know we said we were going to be more regular, but oh well.
This is more regular still.
That's true. Two in
Yeah.
like a month is okay.
Yeah.
Of the Dynasty Fantasy Football Central podcast, I'm Michael Moore. He's Jonathan Scott. Say hello, Jonathan.
Hello, everyone.
It is Saturday afternoon, and I'm drinking whiskey infused with ginger, and I have no apologies. So, you know. And what are you drinking, Jonathan, again?
I'm drinking water because it's 3:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, well. Anyway, we are going through the positions before we get too far along in the offseason for Dynasty purposes. So this episode, I believe, we will cover the receivers, which there's just a crap ton. So we'll try to get to most of them if we can. I think, Jonathan, what we'll do as the rankings from Dynasty Fantasy Football Central were just updated is get to, we'll just sort of go tier by tier. How about that?
Okay.
Is that good with you? So,
Sure.
All right. So first up, it's kind of funny. Like you can consider like the first 10 or 12 receivers, maybe, the most challenging to decipher, but aren't they the kind of the easiest? Meaning, like, which ones make the top 10 and 12. Like, there's no argument about who's up there. You can split hairs on who's 1, 2, and 3, but
Yeah. I'd say for that top tier alone, there will be hair splitting. I mean, it's generally going to be the same formula to decide the same 12. And it's just going to be maybe you have number 9 and 11, maybe you have number 8 and number 6 or whatever.
Right.
Generally.
So you've got Dez Bryant, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, A.J. Green, Demaryius Thomas, and Odell Beckham. Oh, and Calvin Johnson and Mike Evans and Alshon Jeffrey as your top 9. I mean, any one of those guys could take the place of another, couldn't they? Maybe not Jeffrey as number 1, but everyone 1 through 8 could be just as easily number 1 or number 8, couldn't they?
I would say so. I mean, again, this is going to be like if you believe in a certain situation more than others, then fine. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Well, and more importantly, and I think this is a key thing is, whether you're in a 10 or 12 or 14 team league, it's pretty critical to get one of those 8 guys as your receiver, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, this is where we get into roster construction, and it makes it a little bit of an interesting conversation. I generally would say people would say since there are so many receivers out there that you can just sort of piecemeal it together and hope on a week from week. That's not a big deal. I tend to disagree. I think you're at a huge disadvantage if everyone else in the league is guaranteed wide receiver 1 production and you're one of the 2 teams that just not. Like you're kind of working from a disadvantage already. So I would say yes. For the first time in years, I finally have one of those guys in Mike Evans, and it's been a relief, to be honest. So I mean, maybe I'm applying my own sensibilities here, but I feel like you should at least have one of those top 8 or 9 people and just pencil them in every week and then just move on with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah, I would agree. And if you don't, because look, there's only 8, and I don't know many 8-team leagues, but if you don't have one of those guys, hopefully you've got a top-notch guy at your other positions, or you've got a Gronk or something, because it's going to be hard if you don't have one of those 8 guys. So,
well, and the other problem here is if you don't have one of those 8 guys, what you're doing is you're constantly talking yourself into somebody, right? So if you're talking yourself into somebody at enough positions, it's just not going to work out. Like you can't be 100% right. So, you can have Sammy Watkins and Brandon Cooks as your 1 and 2. And you can talk yourself into those, but man, you can't bank on that. There's no way.
Right. No, I'd agree. I mean, if you did do that, you hopefully have like Le'Veon Bell as your running back and Gronk as your tight end, and then that makes up for it. So, no, I think it's both the easiest tier to determine and, probably the most difficult to obtain. So like you said, you sort of, let's face it, lucked into Evans last year because he dropped to like 6 or 7 in a rookie draft, which in hindsight is just stupid. But nonetheless.
Not only that, let's let everyone know how dumb I was. Don't tank the rest of the league. I took Brandon Cooks at 3.
You contributed. Yeah, you contributed.
Receiver, and still got Mike Evans at 7 anyway. So
yeah, that won't happen again. Well, in fairness, and this is a critical point, it's a 2-quarterback league, and Teddy Bridgewater somehow went before those guys. So if you're in a 1-quarterback league, I guarantee you that doesn't happen. But it is what it is. So anyway, but let's get to sort of it's definitely less concrete as far as the next 10 or so. So you got guys like Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, and you've got a couple rookies. So you got Cooper, you got White, and you got Parker all in the top 20. So what do you make of that next tier? I mean, if you have one of those as your wide receiver too, I'd say you're in pretty good shape, right?
Would disagree.
Hot take. Hot take alert.
Well, so having the rookies so high for a dynasty ranking is fine because you're projecting out value for a couple years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into this year with Kevin White or Devontae Parker, or I'll even take Matthews from Philly, if those are your wide receiver 2s, I think you're sweating a little bit, especially with the rookies. Like Jordan Matthews, he did pretty well for a rookie. You can expect a reasonable jump in production just because Macklin's gone. That's fine. The rookies, man, I mean, Devontae Parker, again, broke his foot. And you know how I feel about like receivers with foot issues. I stay the hell away from him at all costs.
You're not a foot man.
Not at all. I'm not Rex Ryan. So I don't. If he's your number 2 going into this year, you got to be really nervous, man. Like that's got to be an issue.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that. But I mean, and first of all, let me agree with your point, which is I recall 2 years ago when Tavon Austin stayed way too high for way too long because he was a rookie and everyone thought, oh, okay, he's just not living up to his potential. But 2 things I think are at work now, which is one, you've got receiver is way easier to ascend than ever before. Just like we touched on, you've got Mike Evans, you got Beckham, who are in their second year, who were top 10 options their rookie year. And that's not even counting Sammy Watkins, who everyone thought was, going to be better than both of them. So I think you've got that going on, meaning pretty quickly at receiver anyway, who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak on the exceptions, but yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Look at the rookies last year. They're good now, Evans and Beckham and whoever. So, and the other thing is, I think just dynasty rankings in general act too slow. I mean, look, Tavon Austin was never good, ever. I mean, he literally peaked in value like his rookie year before the season actually started, right? So, I say all that to say I agree with you, meaning there's a lot of rookies in this next tier, and it's good as far as value is concerned, but that's just what it is value, right? Yep. Meaning, I agree with you. If you're going with Kevin White as your second receiver to start the season,
you're not winning anything this year. Right. And that's fine. That's okay.
Right. But at the same time, as far as dynasty goes, that might be okay. Now, I definitely think you can start adjusting that at least halfway through the season, if not earlier. I mean, at least by halfway through the season, Odell Beckham had a game or two where it's like, holy crap, he might be good.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I agree with you. I think, you got to look at these rankings as value, not necessarily, hey, these are my wide receiver 2s. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the next group, and we're getting into a pretty good mix of rookies and veterans, quite honestly, and these are probably the guys you actually start. But, well, first of all, no, I want to talk about one player in particular and what your assessment is. So somehow Michael Floyd is still 21. I remember going into last season, there was a lot of, obviously, hype going into him. But I think he probably reached, wide receiver 1 levels as far as value. But obviously that dropped off significantly after last year. What is your assessment of him, and where do you put him? Because, I mean, look, there's a lot of things going on in Arizona. You've got Carson Palmer, who is recovering from a torn ACL, 1, and 2, probably isn't going to be there a whole lot longer. Yeah. You've got Larry Fitzgerald, also not going to be there that much longer. And, you've got John Brown, who, quite honestly, in dynasty purposes, I think is probably the best value there amongst the receivers. So where does that leave Floyd for you?
When did Carson Palmer go down? Remember what week he went down?
It was in the second half of the season for sure. I want to say like week 9 or 10.
Well, he missed time with an elbow too, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So I have kind of a working theory here. And before I go into it, this is great radio, by the way, for me to just sit here and look stuff up. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he played one game against San Diego, played the opener, and then played 3 in October, and then that was basically it. What Michael Floyd does, unfortunately, is a very good skill set for a quarterback that is comfortable throwing across the middle on timing routes that take time to develop, which backup quarterbacks just don't do. Okay, if you look at the first 3 games, which Palmer all played, even the first, go through October, actually, his targets were 7 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets. Okay, then all of a sudden Palmer goes down. Then his targets go 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 2. Now, I haven't watched any kind of tape on him. I've watched him play a couple of times, just he's in the Western Division. But I owned him last year in a redraft, and so I was kind of intrigued by what were his issues. And his issues are basically he's a downfield threat. He's going to go get a jump ball, and Arizona never took the time or never had the time to develop those kind of routes. And the routes he was good at are not bubble screens. They're not short intermediate routes. Those all went to Brown, like you said, and Larry Fitzgerald as well. So he just kind of got phased out, man. Like, it's just one of those things. If your quarterback isn't comfortable making the throws that you're good at, you're not going to get those throws. That's just how that's going to work. So,
yeah.
To the other point, by the time they got comfortable at the end of the year, when he started to get more targets again, it was, and this was so November 30th, the last 5 games were 10 targets, 7, 3, then 8 and 12 again. So it seems like there's something there that needs to be looked at as far as a chemistry issue with the quarterbacks and what he's good at. I think if Palmer's there, he'll still be a good value as a number 2 receiver. If he's not, I think he's not going to be the first to eat. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and I'd agree with all that. I think for where rankings have him, I think it's just way too high because I think you've got some guys on the list that are the top target on their team for at least this year, obviously, but beyond. And I think it's another case of dynasty rankers not wanting to just admit, hey, we don't know where to put this guy, so we're just going to stick him where he was. You know what I mean?
You can see his rankings on our website. We had him at 21, 22, 25, and 29 as the aggregate. Like, you can tell he's kind of ranked all over the place. So,
well, I personally, I think I would much rather have him over, or at least it's pretty close. Guys like Brandon Marshall and, probably even Jeremy Maclin, quite honestly, because I know he's gonna be the top target there.
And at that point, I'd much rather have Keenan Allen over Floyd. The rookies, you're kind of projecting a little bit there, but you could talk me into someone like Michael Moore or Perriman maybe. But yeah, it seems like he's dependent on the situation. His situation for half the year wasn't very
good. Agree. And is your mic okay? Because it sounded like a robot.
Oh, sorry. I don't know.
It's like static.
I can no, just a little bit. Sorry.
Okay, I can understand you, so I think we're okay. It might fix itself. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that covers, I think, that tier. So you get into the 30s now, or I'm sorry, we covered the 20s. We're okay. So the 30s, definitely the veterans and sort of. I don't know. It's sort of a cross section of players. So 31, you got Golden Tate, Martavis Bryant, Andre Johnson. Pretty good mix there. I'd say of guys in their prime or on the cusp of their prime or way past their prime. But then you got guys like, Torrey Smith and Josh Gordon. So I don't know you got the rankings up too. Who I think of those out of the 30s, guys ranked in the 30s, do you like and who do you not like?
Okay, cool. So 2 things really quick.
Hey, your voice is better too. I don't know what happened, but there you go.
Awesome. Thanks. If you draft Doyle Green Beckham, you get what you deserve.
I know. I don't like him at all.
He's already up above 250 pounds reporting to camp.
And it's not like he's in a good situation.
No.
If he was like in Indianapolis, okay, maybe. But, you're in Tennessee. Ugh. Horrible.
I can't trust that situation at all. It's just never going to happen. But if you're going to talk about someone in the 30s who I like, Martavis Bryant is someone I'm very high on because
and let me just cut you off. I apologize, but
okay.
I'm just going to warn people now. That bandwagon is going to get super crowded before the start of the season.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And not to say it's not warranted. I'm not saying that, but holy crap! I mean, you're going to hear a bunch of things about him, like flying past corners and like catching deep balls and. Holy crap. Like, if you can get him for a decent value now, I would.
Totally agree. I think he has a chance. I think he has a chance to be a top 15 fantasy receiver this year. I don't see anything in that Pittsburgh offense that would lead me to think they're not going to be a high-powered machine. And he's got natural ability that Roethlisberger plays very well into. So, I like him a lot. I do not like Victor Cruz at all. Sorry. The injury is just such a death knell to receivers. Well,
that and look, let's face it, he's 28.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he might be a good plug and play as a wide receiver 3, but if he's your wide receiver 2 or more, hopefully not, then I think you got a problem.
Agreed. Totally agree. And the rest of them are kind of whatever. I think Tate's numbers should come back down a little bit as long as Calvin Johnson stays healthier. Deshaun Jackson exactly is what he is at this point, and that situation's not getting any better, by the way. So, he's going to have his 55 catches for 1,000 yards and like 6 touchdowns. They're all going to be exciting.
I mean, I would love if Deshaun Jackson was my 3rd receiver, but I would be very concerned if he were my second.
Yeah, if he were a flex position, essentially. Awesome.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be
happy. Look, that's the definition of flex. Like he's your lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So
Jarvis Landry, I like a lot too. I think that Miami offense has a chance to be better than people think. Especially if they sign Evan Mathis or sign any kind of guard. I mean, if they can get their guard situation just shored up a little bit, I think that'll make them – they'll have time for that 5 and 7 step drop they didn't really incorporate last year. So, so Landry could be, again, a very good wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2 if it's a PPR league.
Sure. I'd agree with that. And what were the odds of Miami winning in Vegas last week when you were there?
They were 5-1, I think, and the Patriots were 4-1.
Which I don't understand. I mean, I guess they're banking on the better defense too, but
they're also banking, and they got it right on the Brady suspension. I mean, you can tell me it doesn't matter, but it's got to matter. I mean, I know the Patriots went 2-2 last year, and everyone thought they were done, but the Dolphins on paper have gotten quite a bit better, and the Patriots have theoretically gotten worse because they're going to miss Brady for 4 games, and they didn't really improve across the board in noticeable areas. So I understand it. They're still the favorites, but if you're going to pick on a team to take down the Patriots, it's got to be the Dolphins. And if they do, it's going to be through that air game on offense. It's not going to be through Lamar Miller.
Sure. And I think you can make the argument that they're probably better than the Jets, and they're definitely better than Buffalo. So
Buffalo, man, I don't know.
I'm jumping ship.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I would not be shocked if Buffalo won like 8 or 9 games. Just because that's what Rex Ryan does, apparently. Give him an awesome offense, give him a running back.
Well, yeah. And I would agree with that. I agree with that. And I would also say if you're in a redraft league, I would love LaShawn McCoy this year because they're literally going to give it to him like 400 times. So, which is fine. Hey, great. But, I guess it's yet another it's another what's the word? It's another knock on Sammy Watkins, where I just don't see it with Sammy Watkins. Not by himself. I think in a vacuum, he's a very fine player, and if he were on a better team, he would be performing a lot better. But I don't see him doing wide receiver 1 numbers in Buffalo at all.
Okay, so this is and I specifically thought about Sammy Watkins when you made your comment earlier about, in your first year you see it, and that's it. Like Sammy Watkins is the exact example of, well, not necessarily. Like if you are just in the shittiest of situations in the world and you are playing with broken ribs from week 2 on, then you can understand how maybe it's not entirely.
Sure.
Like,
and I get that. I get that. And look, I would be, if I could get Watkins for decent value, I would, but I'm not going to treat him as a wide receiver one. That's my point.
Not for this year, but I think after this year he could be.
Sure. I get that. And look, I think that could be a perfect time to try to get him halfway through this season. If Buffalo is reeling or he's not doing well, I mean, why not?
Because the thing about Watkins is it just wasn't – that situation was not on him, man. And he had, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3 – he had 5 games of 10 targets or more. Another game of 9 – or 2 more games at 9 targets. I think he was targeted like crazy. It just turns out all of his quarterbacks are pretty awful. And, you know.
And it didn't get any better this offseason, just FYI.
I think it got a little better, but
Matt Castle's a little better.
Did you watch E.J. Manuel last year? Did you watch Kyle Orton last year? I understand. What I'm saying is he's not starting. Like, as long as Matt Castle starts.
Let's back up. We don't know who's starting.
Well, it's fine.
It's not like there's a clear-cut guy there. Come on now.
Okay.
Look, Tyrod Taylor could still start there.
Yeah, T squared.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Look, I think we're in agreement. I think we like Watkins as a player, but the situation is one of the worst ever. So,
correct.
Look, if Buffalo drafts a quarterback next year, I mean, look, that changes everything, obviously. But I would just not good.
I would have him higher than most people, I think. I mean, he still had 130 targets last year. He's averaging 8 targets a game. It's incredibly hard to find a receiver that averages 8 targets a game.
Right. By the way, just as a side note on a personal level, just so you know, Jonathan, one of our team, our fellow league mate, Soggy Pirates, is now asking me about Julian Edelman, just FYI. So if he offers me anything decent, I will give that up in a heartbeat. So
not
that I don't love Julian Edelman, who, by the way, is 38th. I mean, this is perfect. The timing is impeccable. If I get anything decent, I am offloading him like a mother. So
you should.
Anyway, all right. So let's get to the 40s now, and we've got guys like this guy. I just feel bad for. You got guys like Dante Moncrief, Eric Decker, Percy Harvin, and then you've got some rookies like Jalen Strong and Philip Dorsett. So I know you've got the rankings up, Jonathan. Who would you like to let the people know about in the 40s?
Mike Wallace. Absolutely, Mike Wallace.
And is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Thumbs up. Absolute thumbs up.
Me too.
We're
in agreement on this.
Yeah, totally. From all accounts, Mike Wallace is a good dude. He's not a malcontent. Everything about him so far has been great out of camp. He really tries hard. He's not a dick. He's still incredibly talented. He's still very fast. He played on a team that had a quarterback who admittedly could not hit a deep ball. He had some of the worst deep ball matches.
He couldn't. I will tell you the stats here momentarily, but
okay, good, because I was hoping you would have them. Additionally,
just as a side note, this essentially is a contract year, meaning they can cut him, Minnesota, after this year with no problem. So he's playing to not keep his job necessarily, but at least keep his money. So,
and he's unique on that team to what he does. I don't think there's anybody else on that team that can do exactly what he does. So they're going to give him a little more leeway. I would like to tell you that Cordell Patterson can do it, and I still think he can, but I'm not going to bank on it. So Mike Wallace is going to be your deep threat in that offense. And he has a quarterback now who has good deep ball accuracy. Not the biggest arm in the world, but he has very good deep ball accuracy. And he's going to be playing with Adrian Peterson in the backfield. Like, these play action smash routes are going to be open all day long. They're going to go 22. They're going to go 2 tight ends, 2 wide receiver, play action with Peterson, and he's either going to just run that 15-yard take comeback, or he's just going to have an absolute race down the sideline. And I think he's going to have the high end for him is a high end of Sean Jackson kind of year, to be honest. And I think you can get Mike Wallace pretty cheap.
Yeah, no, I agree. And those numbers, just for the record, so Ryan Tannehill, and this is according to Pro Football Focus, by the way, had a 37.7% accuracy percentage on balls 20 yards or more down the field. Okay. By comparison, Mr. Teddy Bridgewater had a 46% accuracy percentage. So a whole 10 points better than Ryan Tannehill. So I agree with you. I think at the very least, Mike Wallace returns to what he did in Pittsburgh, which he had a guy there that could do that could, hit those guys down the field. And for whatever reason, and again, it doesn't really matter, but for whatever reason, he didn't have that in Miami. And that's what he does. Look, he's not a possession receiver. He's not a 5-yard and out guy. He's a, hey, let me just go like a wide receiver out or deep ball and see what happens. And, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, here's the other thing. He is the top target in Minnesota. It's not like they signed or drafted anybody that will challenge him for those kind of snaps.
Correct.
He's it. So, no, I'm a big fan. And look, that's another guy that if he's your wide receiver 3, I think that's fantastic. I would love that all day.
Correct. To the rookies we mentioned in the 40s, I don't really like Jalen Strong that much. Not a great situation. I think if you're going to own a decent receiver, it should be Hopkins. He's going to get force-fed so many balls. Dorsett is fine. He's 1 year away. He's going to play a little bit, but not a lot. But I do like him going forward. I think he's a taxi squad guy. And I don't really like Kenny Stills that much, actually. I know I've said a lot of nice things about the Miami offense, and it should be a very good offense, but I think the ball's going to be spread around a lot there. And Kenny Stills is just, he's coming to do the job that Mike Wallace did, even though we just said the job Mike Wallace did was hindered by that quarterback who happens to still be there. So,
well, not only that, but they drafted Devontae Parker and they signed Jordan Cameron. So,
yeah, different skill sets to me. I think
no, different skill sets, but I'm talking about the pecking order, meaning they're going to get it to Devontae Parker and Jordan Cameron and Jarvis Landry way before Kenny Stills will.
I agree. I would agree with that. Assuming I don't think Cameron's going to play all year. I think he only plays like 4 or 6 games this year.
That's entirely possible too. So.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong because he's a really good player, but that guy has so many head injuries, man.
Yeah. Well, and another on another note, I really like Philip Dorsett if T.Y. Hilton doesn't re-sign this year, but if he does, then I think Philip Dorsett is just a backup, personally.
That's fair.
So I'm if you drafted Philip Dorsett already, then I'm hoping T.Y. doesn't re-sign, but if he does, I think Dorsett is a taxi guy, and that's it. So. All right, moving on. So the 50s now, and we're about halfway through. So you've got, and again, this is getting thin, but you've got like guys like Cody Latimer, Charles Johnson from Minnesota, who we just sort of touched on, Minnesota, John Brown and Devin Funchess, guys like that. So who do you like in the 50s, and who do you not like?
You're probably going to kill me for this.
I'm ready.
I really like Michael Crabtree for a 1 year flyer.
Of course you would.
But a lot of this depends on your view of the quarterback, right? If you think Carr is going to be good, then I think Crabtree makes a lot of sense because it depends on a lot of things, actually. I think we can all agree on Martin Cooper is going to be really good. So if he walks in from day one, he's the number one. And if that is the case, I think Michael Crabtree is not a number one receiver, but if he has a number one on the other side, or he can basically just go one-on-one on the outside all the time. He's got some of the best hands in the league, like as far as like his catching radius and his ability to catch anywhere around his body. So if he's one-on-one, he's awesome at boxing out. He's awesome at making those great 8 to 10 yard catches. Something like 75 receptions, 900 yards, that kind of thing would not surprise me at all from him. It just all depends on what your view is of Derek Carr. And whether or not you think that offense is going to be functional. Because I will tell you, that can go sideways real quick. Real quick.
Oh, I agree.
So, someone I don't like is Roddy White. I own Roddy White. The end is coming. It's coming quickly. I think it might be this year. Maybe they have 1 more year. But he has slowed down significantly, not in his number, but in his actual play. If you watch him play, he's not nearly. He almost looks like a slightly less violent version of Anquan Bolden. The difference is Anquan Bolden has some of the best numbers after the catch of any receiver in the history of the NFL, and Roddy White doesn't. So at that point, I don't know what kind of receiver you're looking at if you're not fast and you're not great at breaking tackles.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. A couple other guys, like you've got John Brown there at 53, which I think is an awesome value, personally. I mean, if you can trade for him at that value, I think that's fantastic. So,
yep.
With Crabtree, just an FYI, I am not a car believer. I'm really not.
Okay.
I think Amari Cooper. Well, let me ask you this: who's better in your assessment as rookies, Cooper or Sammy Watkins last year? And while you say that, I'm going to go get my charger. I'm not leaving, but I'm at 5% and I don't want it to cut off. So just talk for like 30 seconds and we'll be okay.
You know, you didn't have to say anything. Like it's a podcast. You could have just gone and that'd have been
Yeah,
okay.
I know, but I didn't want you to worry. So.
All right. I actually think Sammy Watkins is going to have a better rookie year compared to Amari Cooper. People I guess people just don't understand that Amari Cooper is a good receiver, but Sammy Watkins, they all kind of viewed him as a failure. Even with his quarterback situation, even with the broken ribs, the injuries, all of it, he finished just below 1,000 yards for the year. He looked dominant in stretches. I don't understand the hate towards him. I guess it's just because coming into the draft, there was so much hype on him. Everyone just loved the kid. No one had a bad thing to say about him. So when he struggles a little bit, everyone's off the bandwagon, right? Where I don't understand that situation. Knowing the situation that Cooper's going to be walking into, I don't see. I think it could be a worse situation from a functional offensive standpoint, and I think he's less talented than Sammy Watkins as a receiver. So, if it were me, I would personally take. If I'm putting an over/under on Amari Cooper's numbers, I'd set them at Sammy Watkins, and I would bet the under pretty heavily. So, and I would challenge you to that point. Name the last 1,000-yard, 80-catch Raider receiver we've had. I mean, who has that been?
Who?
I thought you had your headphones in. So the last Raider receiver to have 80 catches and 1,000 yards, who was that?
I don't know, Tim Brown or Jerry Rice.
And that's basically what I was saying is Sammy Watkins basically did that his rookie year while being viewed as a failure. Okay. Like, I don't think Amari Cooper can do anything close to that. Because I think Sammy Watkins is, yeah, man.
No, that's interesting. Because look, it's an interesting argument because Sammy Watkins versus Amari Cooper, those have been the top two rookie, I guess, prospects heading into the season, right?
Okay, but what are we doing there, right? Like, so view it according to class. If Amari Cooper was in his class of last year, where would he have ranked? Probably at least third, if not fourth, pre-draft. I mean, Mike Evans is obviously better than him. Sammy Watkins is a better prospect than him. And then you're putting him up against people like Brandon Cooks.
Sure. No, I get that. It's an interesting hypothetical for sure. You know.
So I think Amari Cooper's a very good receiver. I think he is more in line of a Roddy White type receiver. I don't think he's an explosive receiver. I don't think he's a game changer. He's not going to break away from people.
So probably, if I'm hearing you right, probably not a wide receiver one.
He could be in a PPR league, just like Roddy White was for a few years in a PPR league, because he's just going to gobble people up in that 10 to 20 yard range on routes, man. He's going to make people look. He's going to be what Crabtree should have been, honestly. Just gobble people up, catch everything around him, and he's going to get caught a lot. He's not running away, but that's fine. It's just you're depending a lot on the situation of the quarterback being able to get the right protection, make the right read, make the right throw, and then the receiver doing his job on the other end. Whereas with deep threats or people that are yard after catch guys, you don't really have to have that much dependent on it. You can just run a bubble screen, have them break a tackle, and you're gone.
Yeah.
So I know I'm speaking in very, very general platitude, and this all seems very simplistic in thought, but that's kind of the way I view receivers. I mean, if you want to be dependent on everything on the Raiders' offense going well, go ahead. Ironically, it kind of flies in the face of the Crabtree situation, but that's why I said that could go sideways real fucking fast.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, all right. So we are moving down into the 60s now, and you've got guys like Brandon LaFell at 61, Tyler Lockett at 63, which I don't think I'll ever understand. And then you've got some malcontents like Justin Blackmon and Justin Hunter. So in the 60s, who do you like? And I'm not going to let you say Anquan Bolden.
Nope. Well, for a one-year rental, sure. If you want him for 1 year, go ahead. But I don't know. I've waited for the Terrence Williams thing forever, and it's just not going to happen, apparently, as long as Jason Witten is there. So, no.
You know, and I'd agree with you with that. And I would have thought he would have been a better prospect being in that offense and being the number 2 guy. But apparently Cole Beasley is, so whatever.
You're going to say I'm a little bit biased here, and he did catch a charge over the week, so got to wait that to clear up. But Justin Hunter, if I'm going to bet on anything here, I'd bet on Justin Hunter.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Again, we just talked about it, man. People that can run down the field past people and jump over everyone and break tackles. That's what he does. Like, he's a big play guy. Just got an assault charge because apparently he's cutting dudes with knives. Got to, stop that. Don't do that. But as long as that clears, I think that Mariota is going to really enjoy having him on the outside because, again, there's not really anybody on that team that does what Justin Hunter does, and he does it really well. Yeah. The hands are an issue. If he had better hands, this wouldn't even be a question. But he's where he is because of his hands. So yeah. I don't know. You don't trust Blackman, do you?
Look, if you got a taxi spot open for him, I'd say go for it. But
I guess,
even that is probably dicey, because look, it's been 2 solid seasons now that he hasn't played. So
yeah. I
don't know how much longer you can, and especially in shallower leagues, I don't know how you hold on to him. So
you can't.
I love, I think, Marcus Colston at that 67 spot.
Okay.
Not to say it's going to be for 5 years, but look, he's had a lot of injuries over the years and yet has stuck around. And, I've seen some things that said, hey, who's going to be the primary beneficiary of Jimmy Graham not being in New Orleans? And it could be Colston. I mean, he's the receiver that will not die. Okay.
So here's what I'll say about that. So I think there's going to be 2 main beneficiaries in 2 different ways. I think targets-wise, I think Brandon Cooks is going to have a ton of targets this year.
And I'd agree with that.
For 2 reasons. One is because he's very good. And 2, I don't think Drew Brees' arm is nearly as good as it used to be. People aren't really talking about that, but to be honest, he can't really throw it nearly as far as he used to. So a lot of these short and intermediate bubble routes that Brandon Cooks is amazing at, he's going to get those. The other one that's going to benefit through, I think, a red zone target area is Marcus Colston. We've talked about how no one's replaced Jimmy Graham in the offense. I think Marcus Colston for 2 years has been a glorified tight end. That's all he's been. And so now we have the ability to actually line him up as a tight end where Jimmy Graham lined up all the time and use him in the same way. I mean, I could see him easily doing that. So look at Jimmy Graham's role last year minus the big plays, or 2 years ago, I guess. Minus the 40, 50, 60-yard plays that Jimmy Graham had, those 12-target, 9-catch, 99 or 90-yard, 2-touchdown games, that's where Colston could end up living in this year. And like you said, man, he just won't die. I've been waiting for him to die for 3 years now. He's just not going to do it. So
I know. And just for some perspective, his yards per catch last year was the highest in 5 years.
Yeah.
That's 15.3 yards a catch. And I agree with you. I mean, look, they traded away Kenny Stills. They traded away Jimmy Graham. I mean, all due to cap reasons. But like you said, they haven't replaced it. And everything I've seen on Josh Hill, the tight end that supposedly was going to replace Jimmy Graham, has not been good.
It's been very negative, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not as if, I think it's been overblown about New Orleans switching to this run-first offense. But look, if you think about it, C.J. Spiller is not a run-first guy. He's a catch-first guy. And they're going to use him in that old Darren Sproles, Pierre Thomas role. Yeah. So, again, it's not like, hey, they're having some philosophical shift towards running. Nope. So, look, he's one of the few guys left. I mean, it's a war of attrition, and he's still there. So, if you've got him as a wide receiver 4 on your dynasty team, I would love that.
I think if you want an example of what the Saints offense could become, I don't buy into the run-heavy thing either. I do think they'll depend on the run when it makes more sense to do so. Second and third or second 3 and third and 3, those were always passage away from the Saints no matter what. Whereas the Patriots, not always the case. They won't run the football in that area. But if you want a model of offense and how they want to run things, you could just basically plug and play. You look at Brandon Cooks. He's a slightly better version of Julian Edelman, I'd say, physically anyway. You look at Gronk, and I can tell you that Marcus Colston could play that role. He's never – you could put him in line. He's never going to block, just like Gronk never really blocks unless absolutely necessary. C.J. Spiller can basically play a Shane Vereen type of role out of the backfield, who can also run the ball a little bit. Mark Ingram is your Stephen Ridley, or what he should have been at that point anyway. He could be primed for a pretty good year. And the rest of it are just parts, man. You just tell Drew Brees, hey, go make these wide receiver 3s and 4s better because you're Drew Brees. And I can understand why they're doing it. They can still play very fast. and depend a little bit more on the run, but they're never going to be like a 52-48 run pass team. It's just, and that's never going to happen.
Look, it shouldn't. As long as Breeze is there and Sean Payton are there, like, why would you? You know?
Yep. No, totally agree.
I'd agree with that. All right, so now in the 70s, and these are the true lottery tickets, if you will. So you've got guys like Dwayne Bowe, Doug Baldwin at 71, 72. I put Smith. It's supposed to be Devin Street at 73. That's how little I care for him.
No, it's Devin Smith, actually.
Isn't it really?
Yeah.
Hold on.
And that's fine. He's the guy I love. So
I was going to say, you know what? Just go at it on Devin Smith love.
Yeah, so no, he's. I mean, if you believe in advanced metrics of any kind, every advanced metric would tell you this guy is going to be the next premier deep threat in the NFL. He played with, I would say, good quarterbacks last year, not great at Ohio State, and averaged over 21 yards a catch, which was something ridiculous, like 4 or 5 yards more than the next closest receiver on average yards per catch in Division I out of the Big Five conferences. Now, I think Geno Smith is better than some people. Like, I don't think he's awful. I think his issue is consistency. There are times where he looks like a well above average quarterback. There are other times where he looks like kind of the worst quarterback in the NFL. So depending on how much faith you have in Chan Gailey, which I happen to have quite a bit, will probably determine how high you are in this offense in general. The one thing about Devin Smith is he just broke his ribs. It looks like he punctured his lung as of yesterday. So he might miss the entire camp time, and he may not play in week 1. He may not show up to like week 3 or 4. I'm telling you, I don't think it matters. Devin Smith is not, I mean, he's a deep threat, but he's also 6 foot tall. He's about 210 pounds. He is an entire package physically with great hands and amazing speed. Even though he only climbed 4.41, he is someone that always runs past people and always gets underneath the ball, can high point deep balls. He's just really, really good at that. And I value, like, I'm one of those guys that if you run past people and are not just run fast, but if you run past people and are productive on those deep passes, I feel like teams can teach you the rest of it. As long as there's always a threat that if that guy gets past me, I'm going to get screwed here, then you can teach them the rest of it around. You can't do it the other way around. It's a very limiting, I mean, again, we've already mentioned it twice, but Michael Crabtree. Michael Crabtree can do everything but go deep. There are many corners that can cover a guy who can do everything but that. So, but go ahead, raid my parade. If you don't like him, I know.
You know what? I'm going to throw you a curveball. I like him. It may not be as much as you, but I definitely like him. I mean, look, the guy averaged 20 yards a catch at Ohio State.
I mean, that's insane, man.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah.
And I'm with you on the Chan Gailey thing. I'm a fan. I mean, he's like Mark Trestman light, quite honestly. So I think he had a good shot to be good this year. But, yeah, this injury, I think, knocks him out of that at least. Look, it's very possible he goes the Odell Beckham route, meaning, hey, the first half of the season he's just catching up.
Yep.
But for dynasty purposes, I'm with you. Look, and I'll just tell you right now, if I'm in the 3rd round, I might draft him. And look, it may be a case where even in the 2nd round, if you're in the late 2nd, he might be a guy to take. I mean, the receivers in front of him in New York are Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, not exactly young rookie receivers out there. So, you know, no, I'm with you. I like him. And, you know, just to do a bit of one-upmanship, I saw him at the national championship game, and he was awesome. I mean, they couldn't stop that. So I'm with you. I'm with it. Again, he won't be a first-round rookie dynasty pick, and he shouldn't be. But, you know, 2nd round, late 2nd, I definitely think that's possible.
Yeah, I think I have faith. And you're going to look at his college numbers. He only had something like 30 catches all year. I have faith in his ability to develop more than what was developed at Ohio State. Because I think he was hindered a bit with the whole quarterback situation with the injuries there, the turnover they had constantly. I think he has the ability to develop under that offense. And even if Geno Smith isn't the guy, that's fine. They will bring somebody in there eventually that will make it easier for them to develop those receivers because they don't have a bad offense. The offense is pretty good.
Yeah. No, I agree with all that. I mean, they got to do something at quarterback eventually, you would figure. And look, it even could be a redshirt year for him, you know, which that's not a problem either. I mean, look, if you drafted him and put him on your taxi squad for a year, and then look, let's say Marshall retires or whatever, then he's in line for a lot more snaps and a lot more attention next year. So I'm good.
And again, fit on offenses, he's the one guy on that team that does what he does. No one else can really do what he does. So they're going to want to get him on the field because without him, they're very limited to keep on the field. Everyone else is either older or not really ever fast to begin with.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. So. All right, well, that's the end of the list. Is there any parting thoughts, Jonathan, on Dynasty receivers that you would like the viewership to know? Now is the time.
I would like the viewership to know that it's okay to go all in on a year in a draft if you're lacking a receiver and just let it ruminate for a year. And I'm going to personalize this, but last year I had 0 receivers at all. I had Roddy White and a bunch of hot trash. My first 3 picks in the draft were Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Jarvis Landry.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't awful last year. I've been finished out of the playoffs. Going into this year, I'm set. There's a good chance I could have 3 what will essentially be wide receiver 1 numbers out of those guys. If you have a high-end view of Jarvis Landry and his actual PPR numbers, there's a chance I could have 3 top 15 receivers. Sit it out for a year. If you have faith in the people you want to draft, just let it sit. Especially if you have Kevin White, he's going to frustrate people. If you believe in him, just stick with him.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, and it just depends on, I mean, it probably won't last forever, this sort of golden age of young receivers. But look, I think it speaks to, especially in rookie drafts, going after best player available, because look, you easily last year could have gone like Cooks and then a running back and then, a quarterback or whatever. So
I kicked around Ebron for a little bit. I had a bigger need at tight end than I did receiver. I kicked around Ebron and said, no, I think Cooks and Evans are better with that route. And
well, especially Evans. Yeah, I mean, you very easily could have gone Ebron because he wasn't taken yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it worked out. So anyway, well, that concludes this episode. Very good. We are right under 50 minutes, so that's plenty of time for people's commute and whatnot. So so very good. I think next time, I don't know, what do you want to do, quarterbacks or tight ends next time? You're going in for surgery, so it won't be anytime soon. But
I don't know. I'll be lucid, or maybe I won't be lucid. We really should do one.
Yeah, let's do quarterbacks.
You're gonna do quarterbacks?
Done.
Okay, because this is going to be fun. This is going to be like, yeah, we'll just say this will be fun. We'll save it for next week.
Well, yeah, you have Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick. It can't go wrong.
I'm about to stand up for the black Russian quarterback in no way anyone ever has. Because,
there you go. The black or the half black, as Colin Kaepernick is. So
sure. If you're mobile and you can run a little bit, I love you.
There you go. All right. So people can check the rankings out we just went over at dynastyfantasyfootballcentral.com. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Later, guys.